Hi, I'm Simon and welcome to another video. This is the first in what I hope is going to be a regular series of videos where I talk about games that I've played and beaten recently and share my thoughts and opinions on that game with you. So join me as I reflect on The Darkness. Now this video is actually a response as well. It's a response to Meg, Kawaiiprincess01, and her video about the darkness. Well, I guess your video about the darkness, because hopefully you're watching, but I don't know, who do you address with these types of videos? Do you respond directly to the person who created the original video, or do you respond to everybody else? Because I guess it's not a private message, is it? It's going out to all of my subscribers and anyone else who stumbles across it. So I guess I'll I'll respond to everybody in this way. But thank you, Meg, for making the original video. I really enjoyed it. In fact, I only watched it for the first time this morning. It was put up a couple of months ago, and I clicked on it, and I'd sent a message to Meg after watching the first kind of 20 seconds of it, saying I really want to watch the video, but but I didn't want any spoilers. And she was kind enough to send a message back saying, well, there aren't any spoilers, but I'd really like to hear what you think of the game when you've finished it. And I'm going to take that, obviously, quite literally, and I'm posting a video response about it. So I'm sure, Meg, you were just being polite, just being nice, but it gives me a good reason to chat about the darkness. And in many ways, you putting that video up is what made me at least get the game off the shelf, because I'd bought the game a few months before in CEX. In fact, here's my copy. £4 is all I paid for it, and it was £4 very well spent. I must have, or at least I first heard about the darkness around about August of last year, when I uploaded, well, it was actually before I uploaded my first tag video, because I was asking a colleague at work about, as the tag was about, what games, what are the greatest stories in gaming? And, you know, obviously we talked about a lot of the famous ones, but then I asked him, okay, well, what games have really surprised you? What stories have you been quite shocked by that they were a lot better than you were originally anticipating? And he said to me, well, check out The Darkness, especially as you can pick it up for next to nothing these days. And that's exactly what I did. But as is usual with me, I go out and buy quite a few games that I never get around to playing until, well, firstly, until I saw SNEStastic's The Darkness 2 demo video. And he'd mentioned in there about playing The Darkness, he said he didn't really enjoy it that much. But The Darkness 2, from what I could see, was looking pretty good. I didn't watch the whole video because I didn't want to know a lot about the story, because I could see it was starting to reveal parts of the original storyline. So I thought, well, okay, I've got to play. If I want to play Darkness 2, I really need to play the first one, because I hate starting a series in a sequel. I like to go right back to the beginning, even if that does mean going back many generations to a much older platform to play the original game on. But anyway, so yeah, SNEStastic's video made me think I want to play The Darkness, and Meg's video made me think, okay, I want to play it now because I want to watch that video. I want to hear what she's got to say about it. And that's exactly what I did. And it's actually probably been about a month since I finished The Darkness, and I've only just got around to making this video. Had unfortunately quite a few other things on my plate, but here we go. My reflections on The Darkness. So the first thing I'd like to mention is the story, because that's what drove me to the game. And it has a really good story. It's very gripping. I found that while I was playing it, I didn't have any interruptions. I went night after night, playing the game and wasn't picking up anything else, which is unusual for me because normally I'll have 2 or 3 games, or same with as I was saying in my last video about books, the same sort of thing. I'll pick up one, I'll read it, and then I'll get distracted by something else. But with The Darkness, I didn't find that. I wanted to know more about the story. And one of the things that really drove the story was the characters. And it does have a rather interesting cast of characters. I mean, just take a look at this clip, for example.
You might be the clumsiest kid that ever fired a gun.
Happy birthday, rat face. You're finally legal.
You got balls, kid. You really got balls. And you got brains.
This problem with your Uncle Paulie has gone on long enough, Jackie. It's time to take action.
You're a dead man! You hear me? A dead man! All of the NYPD is behind me, Estacado. I own the NYPD.
I'm just here for the clean air and the engaging conversation.
So there you have the principal cast of characters, the last of which being the protagonist, Jackie Estacado. And you can see from that they're well acted, at least the voices are. One of the problems is, and this is something that Meg picked up on as well, and I agree, it's the character models are not good. Or they're not good enough to convey the performances of some of the characters, primarily Jackie's character. The actor, I'm guessing, gave quite a subtle and understated performance in some of the scenes, and this doesn't translate well to the model that was used.
Yeah.
As you can see from the
Sorry,
game,
baby.
there are
Things got
certain
kinda
sections
screwed up
where
at work.
he'll be speaking and his face hardly moves, especially around his mouth.
I can't
There's
talk right
there's
now.
very little motion
I'll be there
in that
soon.
area of the model, and
promise.
this really does detract. It's kind of, well, with games and with movies and with books, there's this kind of concept of psychic distance, and when you're really drawn into something, that distance between you and the medium disappears. And I'm sure many of you have had this experience, sitting in the cinema getting really engrossed in a film, and then suddenly you realise, oh crap, I'm actually in the cinema. It's this kind of jarring feeling. And unfortunately, for a lot of games, they have too many of these jarring moments for me, where you're sucked out of the story. Things like texture fill-in, you know, or they'll load in a new sequence and the textures start popping in. That's one thing that really breaks the experience for me. And like this with the character models, I can hear the voices and they're acting very well, and I'm believing in the character, but then I'm looking at the model and it's like, I mean, it might sound a little bit unfair, but at times it's like watching Thunderbirds or some other puppet show. Some of the characters are really very wooden, but it's not all of the characters. Some of them are relatively well modelled, and maybe it's the body language. I mean, thankfully, the actor performing Jackie's role uses his body a lot. I mean, he uses his hands, there's a lot of gestures, so through his body language his emotion is conveyed. But yeah, there's a lot lost, and I think it's going to be maybe the next generation of gaming before we see truly masterful performances being portrayed in games. But that aside, this is not to say that it's too disappointing and too detracting from the experience, because the story itself is very compelling and it has enough twists and turns in it to keep you guessing, or at least it was for me. I found that the story went in directions that I really wasn't expecting, and I'm not going to spoil it for you. I'm not going to tell you too much. Now, I might be wrong here because I've only played through this game once fully and played bits of it a second time round, but I felt that I didn't have any choices, which is strange because throughout the game it's about someone struggling with this darkness inside him, and the darkness is telling you at certain points, oh, if you kill these people it'll only make me stronger. But I never at any point felt that I could progress through the game without killing people. I couldn't see another option. And that's a shame, because I think, as I do with many games, that there should be multiple endings to them. There should be multiple routes through the game. And unfortunately, the darkness didn't take advantage of that. I think that's something that could have made this game great, instead of just being very good.
You are nothing but my puppet.
Very much at the heart of this story is the darkness itself, and of course this is a metaphor for the darkness, our dark side that we all struggle with from time to time, and obviously to varying degrees depending on what sort of person you are. Obviously, with this character being a mafia hitman, or albeit I guess someone who's very new to the role of being a hitman, he's supposed to only be 21 years old. In fact, the beginning of the story takes place on his 21st birthday, and the manifestation of this darkness as a monster happens on that day. And that element of the game I really like, the metaphor within the story, but also the way it manifests as a game mechanic, as the darkness itself. Because if it didn't have that element, and especially if it didn't have that element within the gameplay, I think the game would be rather flat. It would be a very bland first-person shooter. And this is one thing where I disagree with what Meg had said, and that was, I feel that the actual gunplay in it is rather weak. After playing things like Call of Duty and Battlefield 3, it's just not as responsive. I fiddled around with the controls, adjusting the sensitivity on the controller, and I just couldn't seem to get it right. I couldn't find the sweet spot. I'd always either the controls were too slow or I over-adjusted too much, and it came to the point where I had to switch on the auto-aim feature, or I just couldn't seem to hit anything. Now, I know Meg had played this on the PlayStation 3, and so there may well be some difference in the controls. I do know the analog sticks on the PlayStation 3 do tend to be a little bit more responsive than those on the Xbox 360, so this could be part of the reason for our difference of opinion. But having said that though, the games I mentioned, the Call of Duty, the other fast first-person shooter games, they don't have this problem on the Xbox, so that element is a bit of a problem. But in the game as a whole, once the darkness manifests, which is within the first act of the game, you don't rely too much on your guns. The more darkness powers that you get, the more you rely on them, and they can be a little bit, especially the creeping dark power that you get, can be a little bit difficult to control at first. As the game progresses, these darkness powers almost become essential. Well, in fact they are, especially as the darkness gives you the shield and the power to regenerate. Once the darkness, you have a button, whichever you choose, and for me it was the left shoulder button, to manifest the darkness. And then with that comes the power of protection, and there's a level of energy within the darkness which gets depleted every time you get shot, but it can be regenerated as soon as you move into a dark spot on the map, and the creature, the darkness, can extract the power from the darkness around it and regenerate your shield. And so the darkness power is fundamental to this game, and without it, as I said, it would be pretty poor. Now, one area where this game really does excel is in the sound, and as I'd said previously, the voice acting is first rate, and none more so than the acting of the actor. I don't even know the name of the actor, but the person who voices the darkness itself. And the sound engineers within the game have created it quite beautifully, especially if you're playing the game in surround sound, that it sounds like the darkness is around you, that the voice of the darkness is very close and claustrophobic. In fact, even the game itself, when the darkness or the voice of the darkness comes out of you or speaks to you, that the lighting effects within the game kind of compress the image and darken it, and yeah, it really does have a very cool and creepy atmospheric sense to it, and that's something I really liked. In fact, the first time the darkness really comes out of you is a nice little sequence, so just have a look at it and see what you think.
I will display my power.
He's around here somewhere.
Through you, I am born.
So as you can see there, that guy threw his gun at you and ran away. Unfortunately, I find this doesn't happen anywhere near enough in the game. Surely, anyone faced with something as horrific as this monster that's coming from within Jackie and snapping and ripping and tearing at the world around him, that no matter even if you are the hardest mafia guy, you might fire a couple of shots at it and realise nothing much is happening and you'd run away, surely. But no, it doesn't happen all that much in the game. In fact, some characters don't even seem to pay any attention to the fact that this beast is coming from within your character. In fact, on my first playthrough of the game, I thought that, at least for a large portion of it, that this was even within the story of the game was a metaphor, that the monster coming from within him wasn't really seen by the enemy. It was only at certain points later on where you can hear the enemies talking about all the crazy stuff he can do in the darkness, that you realise, oh, well, actually they can see it. Because there are points in the game where some of the characters don't even react to the fact that you have two snapping giant heads and a monstrous tail type thing whipping around. I mean, check this little sequence out, for example, where I save what I imagine is an innocent bystander from a couple of criminals. So nothing. He doesn't even blink. And it's these kind of moments that can really detract from the game itself, unfortunately. They can break the experience. In any game or any fantasy world that's created in any medium, if things happen within that world that you cannot believe, then it almost destroys it for you. And it's moments like those in not just this game, but other games, where I'm left thinking, well, this is just ridiculous. I want the characters within the game to react to what I'm doing. So you may be thinking, well, with these negative points, what is the point of picking up the game itself? Well, it has a great storyline. The story is enough to keep you entertained. The gameplay is good and gets better as you learn to control it. Admittedly, once you get the last two darkness powers, it does become a little bit easy, even on the hardest level. But that doesn't matter too much, because there are enough twists and turns in the story to keep you coming back. There are also fantastic performances, albeit with kind of wonky wooden models that they use within the game. And the sound effects and the music are really first class. So all in all, you've got a really good game, and when you consider how cheaply you can pick it up, you know, you're on to a winner. Although, I mean, like I said, myself, I got it from CEX. I picked it up from for £4. I have heard that certain places are putting the price up naturally as the Darkness 2 has come out. People will who haven't played it will want to go back and check out the Darkness, so they've upped the prices a bit, which is a shame. But I'm sure if you hunt around, you'll still be able to find it at a pretty good price. And with the Darkness 2 already out and hopefully dropping in price to a price that I'm willing to pay for it soon, I'll be checking that out and reviewing it. Well, maybe not reviewing it, but giving you my thoughts on it at some point in the near future. So thank you very much for watching, and thanks to Meg for making the video that I'm responding to. So from my living room to wherever you are, this is Simon signing off. Bye bye.